Hi, and thank you for joining us today on our fifth of 5 webinars in our series titled Organizational Immunity. My name is Dee Coca, the Chief Evaluation Officer with Sterling International. This fifth session is titled Reaching Immunity, a Systems-Based Organization. I would like to start by introducing my mentor and friend, Ala El-Hawagi. Ala serves as an organizational systems strategist, consultant, executive coach, and organizational development professional. He is the chairman of the board of Sterling International, headquartered in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and the former CEO of Innovative Group, headquartered in Pompano Beach, Florida. Hi, Ala. Thank you for joining me again today.
Hi, Dee. It's great to connect with you today.
As we finalize our Organizational Immunity series today, can you share with us what you mean by reaching immunity, a systems-based organization?
First of all, I would like to thank you very much and thank the Sterling International team for your commitment and continuous work towards performance excellence. I really appreciate that very much. I'd like to thank the viewers who have joined us graciously for the last 4 webinars, and this is our 5th and last. In this webinar, Dee, I'm going to try to answer a very simple question. How can any organization reach to immunity? We can call it maturity, if you will, by becoming an SBO, which is a systems-based organization. What I'm going to focus on and why now. Okay, so those are the 2 big pieces I'm going to trying to discuss today. I have shared on my LinkedIn page an article titled that COVID-19 means that systems is no longer optional. Actually, I have been saying for the last 20 years that whether it's COVID-19 or otherwise, operating your business non-systemic is never an option. It definitely, if you're looking for performance excellence, if you're looking to sustain that performance excellence, you have no choice, basically, but following a systemic approach to your organization. So most people, I think, if anything, we realize through this COVID-19 that how interdependent we are and how everything is connected to everything else. And that's why you can never do one thing alone. And these are 2, I just quoted 2 of the system thinking principles. But we also understood that in order to lead our organization in the future, it ought to be by deliberate design, not by coincidence. And how can we do that without a systemic approach? So to begin with, I'd like to pose some questions for our viewers to reflect on. Here's one. How do you manage your organization so you can maximize productivity? What's your tool to do that? How is work designed and being carried out and connected in your organization so you can sustain performance excellence? How do you keep your stakeholders and customers happy and connected and increase profitability? How do you engage and recognize your workforce for retention and obviously for operation optimization? And how do you manage your budget better and optimize expenses in order to become more efficient as an organization? I trust that the answers to these questions lie in taking a systemic approach. Let me give you real stories from our clients, and I'm going to keep them very short, 1 sentence. One of our clients, if some of our viewers, and probably most of our viewers, are connected to some sort of a business, we had a client that they were able, through systemic approach of their business, to quadruple their profit in 2 years. Quadruple, 4 times, 400% increase in profitability in 2 years. Not to mention, got them to a stage where they can bid more successful projects. They can look in the future and say what else to be had. If you are part of a school, okay, one of our clients was a school and worked with that. And it started as a very small school, 50 students. Not only it has grown to 400 students, but now they have a waiting list. They went from no name to have a waiting list for at least 3 years for people who want to enter that school. If any of our viewers has something to do with healthcare, how about one of our clients as a hospital who had breakdown in communication, who had lots of challenges dealing with their patients, and even at the physician's level, now not only they have almost 100% occupancy, and this is not something to be really bragging about, but from a business perspective, it's something to brag about, but communication is going very good. They were able to overcome lots of challenges. They were able to come up with hands-on practical solutions for some of the challenges that they are facing. So the systemic framework that we're going to be talking about in this webinar, as a sum for everything we've done in the past, is going to help our viewers to see how you can undertake that in a calculated, safe way to ensure, one, you create low-hanging fruits along the journey, but two, to ensure that you get to performance excellence and you're able to sustain that performance excellence over a span of time.
Okay, so you're talking about this, and regardless of what business sector, you're talking schools, healthcare, business. I think that's something that's important for people to understand, that regardless of what industry you're in, if you come at this with a systematic approach and recognize whether you're in a hospital setting, a school setting, manufacturing, everything is based around operations and workforce and leadership. These are common threads throughout. So it's not necessarily a concern regarding what industry, if you consider it from this aspect. So I like that. Okay. As organizations embark on this journey, are there considerations that they need to keep in mind?
Well, absolutely. But let me comment on what you said. System thinking does not recognize industry. It does not recognize function. It does not recognize size of an organization. This framework can be applied and ensure success, all sizes of organizations, all industries across the board. The reason I mention those, because those are real stories from some of our clients. Nonetheless, as you said, it doesn't have a boundary where that can be implemented in. Back to your question, yeah, there are a couple of considerations that we need to keep in mind. Number one is the framework itself. The framework itself is provided in order to give us some sort of a path that we can look at to ensure that we use it successfully in diagnosing our organization and where it is. So use it, and you're going to start seeing some amazing things coming out of it. The second thing we need to keep in mind is the role of the organizational leaders. We have dedicated the first webinar to talk about leadership and to emphasize the fact that one size doesn't fit all, that leadership is a job like anything else. We need to learn it. And here's the great news. 85% of leadership skills needed today can be taught, and they are learnable skills. So if the idea of are great leaders born or made, well, Dr. Peter Singh talked about that. Great leaders are born, then made, which means you may have some traits of it at the very beginning, but you have to develop it, you have to anchor it, you have to understand it in order to use it effectively. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of leaders in the organization. Those are the leaders that come and say, I don't know. Oh, okay. And they say it because they want to learn, they want to grow, they want to take their organization to the next level. Discover what works for you. I guess what I'm saying here is this framework is very agile, and you can work with it and define what is the starting point for you, but you ought to learn where you are overall as an organization, agility level and otherwise, so you can use this properly and appropriately so it can give you the results that is set to do. The fourth one, which we also talked about in webinar number one, communicate, communicate, communicate. Make absolutely sure that the communication cascade down in the organization and go wide in the organization. So vertical and horizontal, the communication must be there and must be clear and must be validated that it reaches everybody in the organization, particularly the front line. My last point, and it's really an important point. You are in this for the long haul. This is not something that you're going to try today and then it's going to go away tomorrow. This is something that is becoming your way of looking at your business. Okay, it's almost like people like me who struggle with their weight. There isn't a diet that came ever on this earth that I didn't try. And guess what? I try, I get the results I want, and once I get off it, I balloon up back. Okay, so the notion of being able to keep a healthy body has to come up with a new mental model, is how I look at food. Okay, so instead of looking at a pie in the fridge and say, oh, I see the sign that says, eat me please now. Okay, it becomes, can I take a slice, and then kind of spare the rest for later on. So this model relies on long-term. You're going to be using it. It's going to be the way you do business. It's not going to be like business and framework, but this is how we're going to be doing business. So might as well have fun with it, enjoy it, have discussion groups about it, create a think tank in your organization where they can toy with some ideas and tools, because you are in it for the long haul. These are the general consideration, if you will, that I would like to put as a foundation before we talk about the framework.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for the leadership to be all in, because that's what makes it or breaks it. Because you can have some individuals at different levels in the organization that are fully committed to this whole thing. But if they move on, they promote, or they move on to another organization, all their efforts, they fizzle out. It has to come from the top, and it has to be wholehearted. It can't just be delegation. It has to be true to the leadership team. And that's the key to the success of anything that you're trying to implement, whether it's values, systemic approach, anything. So, okay. So thank you for these tips to keep in mind as we take this journey. What do you have for us today that illustrates the framework in ensuring organizational immunity?
Okay. Once you have it up, I will start going over it.
It's up. Do you see it?
Hold on. I for some reason I don't see it.
Okay.
But maybe it's there. Okay. No, it's not there. I see you and I see me, but I don't see it.
Well, that's because I'll hit the right thing this time. How's that?
Yay! Okay.
Welcome.
Now I can see it. Okay. So the framework is Reaching Immunity, a systems-based organization framework. Now, the model or the framework is in the middle, and you can see it. It's made of 6 hexagons, and there is like a strip at the bottom, okay? And then what lifts this up the sheet of paper are the core values of the organization. You notice that the hexagon to the left, which titled Leadership, and the one to the right that's titled Results, has a perimeter, has a wide perimeter around them. These get the larger number of points when the organization is evaluated according in preparation to receive the Covenant Award of Sterling International, but also it drives the idea of why these are critical and important and why we are focusing on it. Let me make a statement that kind of put this entire framework together. And the statement goes like this. Okay, and I'm going to start from the left and go into the right, and you can monitor what I say as you look inside the hexagons. On the left, you have leadership, and above it is strategy. Below it is customers. We call that the leadership triad. And on the right-hand side, you have workforce. Below it, operations, and to the right is results, and we call that the results triad. Below that, which is really the foundations, is measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. On the top is...
Excuse
yes.
me, Ala. Can you please clarify? You started mentioning this organizational model, the categories, but you started talking about the award. Can you explain what you're talking about? Is that something, so there's connectivity here for what you're speaking of? There's the assessments and the...
Yes, thank you, Dee. Yeah, you always save the day. Okay, when organization goes through this, they have 2 options: either to do it to ensure and sustain performance excellence, or they do it to sustain performance excellence, and then they call the Sterling International to come and evaluate their organization. And when they have a verdict that, yes, you have fulfilled all the criteria required, then they are entitled to receive this amazing, prestigious award called the Sterling International Award in collaboration with Florida Sterling Council. So that's what I meant by that. So the framework, and thank you so much for pointing this out, the framework in the middle, as I start to explain it, a picture that has those six categories, if you will, and below it is the seventh one, which is the measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. And you notice above it, I have a picture of the strategic apex. This framework cannot see the light organization-wide unless the folks on the top buy into it. If they don't buy into it, it's just going to be individual effort to improve, and that's noted, and it's noble, and it's great, but that's not what we are talking about here. What we're talking about here is organizational transformation through deliberate effort focused on addressing all these seven categories. Okay, so again, I got a sample of the 114 questions that come in these seven categories that applicants or organizations need to be going through in order to start the transformation journey of their organization. I selected few, and out of those few, there are even fewer that I'm going to be talking about. So let us begin with the one to the left, which is the leadership. Okay, and you notice I gave the leadership and the results the same color, because those are very, very critical. Organization without leaders will not produce results. Results in an organization, if it doesn't happen, the organization will perish. So here's the sentence I wanted to say to begin with that can combine all these categories together. So everybody kind of listen to this statement and see if it makes sense. Progressive organizations have visionary leadership that focused on building and deploying a strategy to serve their customer using a well-trained and developed workforce that apply and deploy value-added flow analyzed processes based on clear measurement system to produce the outcome needed of the organization. This is really are the seven categories of an SBO or Sterling International organization. So with this in mind, let me begin by leaders or leadership categories. And I'm going to address three questions. They are bold and italic, so you don't miss them. How do leaders set vision and values? And by the way, this category, if you look at the bottom, it's about senior leadership and governance. How senior leadership govern, and also how the organization display societal contribution. So the first question is, how do leaders set vision and values? Notice, this question does not ask you about the vision. They are not asking you about the values, but it's about how do you come about developing the vision and the values. Do leaders go to the room and kind of come up with a vision and say, okay, here's your vision, go and do it, which happens in a lot of organizations, because there are 6 ways of developing the vision. One of them is co-create, which is our favorite, okay? Or they engage and they involve the workforce, the front line, and everybody in making that vision so they can build loyalty, so they can build connectivity, so they can build commitment. And the second question I want to highlight, how do leaders communicate? Communication is one of the pedestals of leadership and the hallmark of progressive leadership over centuries. That has never changed nor ever will. What has changed is the how. How do they communicate? Okay, it used to be that you have to walk in out of your office and talk to people. Now you can send a message that can reach thousands of people. Now, the third question I want to address, how do leaders get evaluated? Every organization gets excited with audit. Okay, well, let's do a financial audit. And I'm not debating the value and the importance of that, but how many organizations actually do a leadership audit? Okay, remember as you already know, and we have gone through that with with several of our clients. People leave managers and leaders. They don't leave organizations. So if our organization, if our leaders are not up to the position they are in, they are not up to leading, the old saying, get involved or get out of the way. Okay. So if we're not engaged, if we're not doing audit, okay, on this, then what is the value? One of the jobs I held before I started my organization about 20 years ago, I was working for the American government, particularly in the Department of Transportation. And I was the second in command in where I was. And one of the things that we'll do every year is to do employee satisfaction survey. And guess what? The Secretary of Transportation, as the Minister of Public Works in any of the countries in the Middle East, will call every leader in his office to discuss the results. And if it's high, how can we sustain and celebrate? And if it's not as high as he wanted, what are you going to do about it? Give us a week or two to put the plan together and go back and report to him how we're going to do it. So leaders need to walk the talk, and leaders need to talk the walk. After you walk the talk, you need to tell the story. So it becomes part of the methodology of the organization, become part of the culture of the organization. So we get into the second cat, which is the top pinkish kind of box that talks about strategy. And here we talk about two things, okay? Development and implementation. Make sure that you develop the right strategy. Please do that, okay? I looked at some strategies developed by organization, and it was like, what is this? Okay, you really need to get people who are specialized in doing this to develop the right strategy for your organization. So when you start implementing it, you are on the track to get to where you need to go. And in there, we're going to talk about a couple of things. How do you conduct strategic planning? There is a myth that if you have vision, mission, and value, that's strategic plan. That's not a strategic plan. That is a plan. How to convert that into strategic plan? What kind of market data we need to get in? What is the SWOT of the organization? Where do they stand as far as strengths, as far as weaknesses, as far as opportunities and threats? All kinds of information needs to get into that to make a strategic plan. And who's involved in that? Again, is it just 2 or 3 people, or are we involving more sector that represents the organization that's going to execute that plan? The second question I want to really address is, what are your strategic objectives? And I call it WIGs, which is the wildly important goals that you're going to put to reflect those strategic objectives that's going to consequently develop into action plans that will get from the highest level of the organization to the front line that tells them what needs to happen on a daily basis. Literally, who is doing what, by when, by how much. That's what needs to be included in that plan at the end. The last and the third and last question I want to address is the effectiveness measures. What kind of measures that you have? What kind of dashboard do you have? If you have the option to buy 2 vehicles, one with a dashboard and one without a dashboard, and both are the same model, same price, same look, same make, same everything, which one will you buy? Okay, you're going to buy the one with the dashboard. Why? I want to know the temperature. I want to know if I need to pull in at the gas station or not. And I like to get information. So how do you design your dashboard? How effective is that dashboard is? Then we're going to get into the customers, which is the bottom, the yellowish one. And in there, we are talking about customer expectations and customer engagement. Okay. Now, the term customer experience has come to the surface in the recent year, and now everybody is talking about, but not too many people know what to do with it. Okay. Now, how do we listen to the voice of the customer? What do customers tell us? Okay. And how can we factor in this information into our strategies, our strategic objectives, our direction, et cetera, et cetera? How agile is your organization to say, yeah, I have set this strategic objective, but I can go back and look at what needs to be modified and changed? How do we determine the customer expectations? Where do we get that information from? Okay, we ought to have a vehicle that give us those clearly so we can design the interventions that we need with the customers accordingly. And lastly, how do we dissolve customer complaints? How do we resolve it? And the term dissolve here is really a systemic term. I'm not talking about absolving, I'm not talking about resolving, I'm not talking about solving, I'm talking about dissolving, meaning that this challenge that the customer is facing is gone forever, never come back again. How can we get into problem dissolution rather than solution? And what does that entail? And what does it include? So all kinds of things. I will never forget my experience at Disney. And I'm a big fan of Disney. I used to have annual passes and I go there every year with my family. And at Disney, you are not allowed not to be happy. You have to be happy. And if anything tarnishes your experience, you go to the customer experience office and you tell them what happened, and oh boy, did you get an apology from the higher up in the organization? Do you get some treats because you were patient enough and kind enough? And it can be a very minute thing, but because I love Disney and I worked with Disney before, I feel like, I have an obligation to tell whatever is in my mind. How many of us go to a restaurant and have a nice meal, but never took 3 minutes to fill out something that says, that was awesome? Okay. Then we finished now the leadership triad. Let us move into the results triad. And the results triad begin on the top with what we call, or what the framework calls, workforce. Okay. How do we attract and onboard the workforce? This is the first touch point for a newcomer to our organization to reflect on, are they going to stay in this organization or not? Okay, so how do we do the attraction from ads to interviews to meeting that prospect workforce individual? And if he or she are not joining our organization, how can we make from them a good marketeer about their experience that they have gone through when they came in through the attraction process and the onboarding? And you notice I'm not talking about recruitment here. That's a definition of the past. We are talking now about attraction and retention instead of recruitment and selection. The second question I selected to talk about is how we organize the workforce for maximum productivity. We have a client that we have multiple clients actually that we work with, and we walk in, and this client has gems in their organization. They have amazing people who no one knows about, who've been hidden somewhere, that have not been exposed to what needs to happen for them. And once you give those folks voice, once you put them in the right place through reorganization, they touch the sky a few times a day. And they produce 5, 7, 8, 10 times what they have used to produce. My doctorate degree, the one about leadership, has focused on what an extraordinary leader can produce versus a mediocre leader. And my research came to 10.5 times. An extraordinary leader can produce 10 times productivity from the workforce than a mediocre leader. By how? Creating the culture, ensuring the resources, putting the right person in the right seat, and creating the right environment for them. Okay, so the last one I want to talk about is how to determine engagement drivers. One of the scary things I always keep an eye on is the research coming about employee engagement. And I don't know if you read the last research or not, but nearly 70% of the workforce is disengaged.
Yeah.
And I look at this and I say, look at this waste. All what you need to do is to come up with a mechanism and engagement drivers that get these 70% on board, and automatically you have created double the results by doing nothing but engaging the workforce. And I make it much easier said than done, but it needs a lot of work in order for it to happen. Well, workforce uses operations, and this is the green box at the bottom to the right. And here we're talking about work processes and operational effectiveness. And in the process, whether it's core or support, we need to conduct on it what we call the value added flow analysis. Over 75% of efforts, resources, time, and money in any process can be saved. I have never worked with a client that were not able to bring their processes down by 50 to 75%, which automatically double the time available for the workforce to do other things. There are so many ways that you can deliver excellence, not with more resources, but believe it or not, with less resources, but optimizing those resources, putting those resources at the right in the right place to do the right things. So how to improve work processes? I talked about value added flow analysis. Another one we need to look at how we pursue innovation. Organizations need to complicate this. Okay, they not need to, I'm sorry, they tend to complicate this. I want our viewers to look at the innovation as ingenuity, okay? And ingenuity is an individual ingenuity, okay? We always hear about American ingenuity. So what is the American ingenuity? What is the Egyptian ingenuity? What is the Syrian ingenuity? What is the Filipino ingenuity? Whatever the ingenuity is, okay? Ingenuity is about my ability as an individual in an organization to look at something and say, how can I make this better? How can I introduce this mindset, this new mental model to every worker in the organization to say, I can make this better, whether I'm involved in typing a report or putting a post on the side of the road or building a vehicle, whatever the case might be. Can it be better? How can it be better? And as we individually start thinking about that stuff, guess what? It is going to connect the dots into a breakthrough. So the breakthrough in innovation comes through interconnected ingenuity by the individuals and the wonderful workforce working in the organization. And finally, how to optimize your operations. What are some of the things, and this is really a very tough one. It's not about optimization of processes only, but it's about looking at the process from the eye of the customer and eliminate any steps that the customer does not recognize as an added value. So any checking, any reviews, any unnecessary signatures is not value added. But here's the tricky part. In order to eliminate these functions, we have to eliminate the need for them. And once we started working on eliminating the need for them, guess what? Quality measures go up. And that is the beauty about this framework. As you are doing something, is going to enhance the model to go to another level. Then we get into the results as the final component in the results triad. And in there, we're talking about real organizational results in all of the domains. So we need to have results in what we have set in our strategic objectives in reference to products, services, and processes. We need to look at excellence and customer experience. What is that telling us? How to analyze the data that we are getting. What does this really mean for our strategizing efforts? Leadership and governance. We need to have a very serious dialogue about how are we leading, what's involved. I mean, it's really, it gives me heartburn when I walk into organizations, and everyone in the organization can tell you where is the did what. They tell you who's the leader that is not doing anything, but no one is doing anything about it. And it costs the organizations millions of dollars, okay, without removing this person or without developing this person or without coaching this person or doing something. At minimum, hold them accountable for results. So what are we doing with that? Leadership and governance, how well are we doing this? And obviously, the easy one that everybody kind of keep an eye on, which is financial and how we're doing in the market, and how's our strategy is combining our efforts in order to ensure the finances and give us a larger footprint or a deeper footprint in the market. The last one, which lies in the orange box in the middle, which is the foundation for everything we talked about, is measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. And in there, the old saying, what gets measured gets done. Also, what gets measured gets improved. So you ought to be measuring things, okay? If you wanna bake a beautiful cake, you go by recipe, and recipe has measures. If you wanna build a road, as my previous industry I was in, I need to mix the asphalt well, I need to mix the concrete well, and I need to put them together at a certain temperature so we can get what we need to get. And we revisit these measures frequently to make sure that's working for us. The value of these measures, it will allow us, and this is one of the points I want to discuss here, is it will allow us to make a fact-based organization. It's not how I feel, it is not how I am connected to something, but do I have data that tells me going in this direction is not going to give me what I'm looking for? Do I have data that says, take the first detour to the right or to the left, because this path, while it looks comfortable, is not going to give you the profit that you are looking for? I talk with some clients that are losing. It's one of their business ventures, but they have this hope that this business is going to turn around in 18 months from now. And when it turns around, the profit that they're going to get will never make a fraction of what your losses. And I don't know who they are listening to, and I don't know who are their finance advisors, but they are not giving them the right advice, for sure. Okay, what the measures also give us as a fantastic tool is becoming a learning organization. I suggest to every viewer here is to look at Dr. Peter Senge, the Fifth Discipline book, the field guide. And this is 600-700 pages, is filled with tools that help organization become a learning organization. And here's the value of that. When we become a learning organization, we are agile, we are ever evolving, we are ever transforming, we are ever supporting, we are ever listening, we are ever seeking ingenuity, we are ever building our own best practices. What works for GE may not work for Google. What worked for Google is not going to work for Apple. What's going to work for Apple is not going to work for Disney. But there are common themes that we can agree on. And based on that, we build our own knowledge management or best practices through which we can say, here is what works for us as ABC organization. So again, the main thing here for this framework to get to where it needs to go, that we really need to focus that it needs to start at the top with a strategic apex, and it gets filtered down or cascaded down or communicated down through the body of the organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my takeaway for this, for me, it's about, it begins and ends with the leadership, like we were talking before, the level of commitment to all of this. And it's very critical to have a high level of employee engagement. And I feel, in my experience, the best way to do that is make sure everybody knows that they matter, that they're individuals. You're not just making blanket statements and expecting everyone to conform, because you have to consider in different facets of every organization, not all things apply to each work group. You have to consider what their needs are, and that will also help with the ingenuity, the innovative ideas, and the feedback that they can provide that'll help aid in all these other things and all these other categories and continue on with in the right direction. Okay, let's see. Do you have anything else you'd like to add regarding this?
Regarding the framework, no, the framework is what I shared, at least the highlights of it. Mm-hmm. But I would like to share some ideas And this is I'm going to share some of our tools that are in our toolbox that we use with our clients that will help an organization implement this comprehensive framework, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are literally tens of tools that we use. Okay, and we have specifically almost 45 tools that are integrated together to create this in any organization. And we have used it with clients in a scattered way with different clients, or we have used it holistically with one of our clients that is getting ready now to apply for the Sterling International Award in 2021. So some of this is going to be a kind of give you the main tools. Remember, the Sterling International Framework, which is the one I shared with you, which will allow you to reach to immunity, also will allow you to get to level 5 maturity, also will allow you to get to performance excellence and sustain that performance excellence. Some of it's a diagnostic tool. It is a diagnostic tool. It doesn't tell you how to do things, but it shed the light on what are the gaps in the organization. For that, we design what's called the Navigator, which are the questions I talked about, the 114 questions. And those are an online assessment that organizations can get. And they get at the end a very comprehensive report that identify the gaps in the organization. Okay. The survey is about 45 minutes to 15 minutes to take, but it is a starting point for the organization to say, here's where I stand. What is the first thing you do when you're trying to put yourself on a diet? You jump on the scale and say, oh my God, I am that many? Okay, well, this is the thing. The Navigator is going to help an organization to say, here's where I am today, okay? And this is in English, and we were able to successfully translate it to Arabic, and we are working, one of our intentions this year is translated to French as well. So we'll have these 3 main languages that this wonderful tool is made in. The other tool that we use, and it has been really tremendous in checking the pulse of the organization, checking the level of communication in the organization, as well as identify some of the behaviors that organizations need to continue doing to ensure success, is stop doing because they don't contribute to the success, or start doing because we have an understanding that when we do that is going to lead into the success of the organization, which probably the 3 questions that most of us in our organizations toy with every day. This is good, I need to continue doing. This is not so good, I need to stop doing. And this is, I never tried it, I wish we can. We use a handy dandy tool, it's called True Colors. And we partner with True Colors International from California to do that. And it's an amazing tool to check the pulse of the culture. And also it gives us a fantastic report at the end that's going to go to the organization to say, here is how you're looking internally. Whether we're talking about, are we more knowledge-based? Are we more action-based? Are we more relationship-based? And are we more planning based, and how we can maneuver between these 4 domains to ensure the success of the organization. For the preparation of the transformation, so this is for the diagnosis. And based on that, we can determine with our clients what needs to happen. For the preparation, the first thing is we need to choose or select a change management vehicle. And I talked about that last time in the last webinar, which we decided to partner with ProSci ATCAR. This is the model that we believe in. This is what we like. This is what we feel comfortable with. This is really what got our clients fantastic results. So that's in the preparation phase. The other point, which is very, very, very critical, very critical. You know, it reminds me with the American Express ad, don't leave home without it. So here is don't start the transformation without it, which is creating the transformation agents. the people within the organization that's going to carry this over after the consultants leave, after the helper leave. And we use a certified organizational manager program in collaboration with Florida State University. We represent them globally with exclusive rights. So we can develop the leaders of the organization in preparation for them leading those transformation efforts. In the execution phase, we use obviously the framework that I talked about, the Sterling International Framework, and this is very comprehensive, and we have lots of publications about that framework that are available for organizations to use. We will also develop what's called the PIS, which is the Performance Improvement System, not the Performance Management System. Performance Management System is individual-based. Performance Improvement System is organization-based, which is creating this evolutionary improvement step by step in order to get to where you need to go. These are the main things that we suggest highly that be looked at least for us, have been very successful, gave us very successful results working with our clients.
Okay. We have a few minutes left. Did you want to summarize what we've gone over today?
Well, I think the main thing that I really want to talk about is, first of all, thank everybody again for their time and for being with us throughout the 5 webinars. My Chief Operations Officer was talking to me a few days ago, and he said, you know what, I think these webinars ought to be captured somehow. So what are your thoughts about it? And I reflected on that, and I decided that I'm going to put this in a book, and I'm going to publish the book in 6 months. So and the reason I'm going on air to say that, so that will give me a commitment, and also my team to hold me accountable for that. But I'm going to publish a book, which is the know-how of Sterling, how to take the Sterling journey. And I believe is going to be filled with ideas, at least tools, and is going to really tell our story, is going to tell our experience dealing with these tools, and what should the reader expect when they implement these strategies. So thank you, Tamer, for talking about this and for suggesting this, and for always pushing me to do the uncomfortable. Okay. Because I'm comfortable talking, but I wrote a book, but I never published it, and I guess maybe it's time now to publish both. I never talked to a laptop before, and here I am, and he is kind of really pushing me hard, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate this from every team member I have, because those are the folks that get us all as an organization to become stronger, to become better, to become really of service to our clients. And thank you, clients, all our clients around the globe, in all the countries we operate in. Thank you for your trust in us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve you. Thank you for your continuous business with us. It really means a lot to us, and I really appreciate you, and appreciate the partnership that we have built with you over time. I think if there's something in there that lastly, as a summary, look at the framework. It does work, okay? Start with what I have quantified. Look at the leaders in the organization. Look at the culture in the organization, because without these 2 vehicles, I don't think your efforts are gonna really succeed, or at best is gonna be humble. And what we are talking about here is total transformation. We're not talking about change, we're talking about quantum leaps. And I trust in my heart, from all the organizations I worked with, whether as an employee who have gone through this journey, or as a consultant helping clients take that journey, it does work. And I have documents to show the level of profitability, growth in the market, all kinds of things that sustain the idea that this work. And if you look at the Florida Selling Council website, if you look at the Boulder Ridge website, you're going to have hundreds of organizations that have gone through this journey and have came out of it much stronger, much more profitable, much more sustainable, and much more prudent to the economy that they are operating in.
Okay, did you want to mention anything about the Organizational Immunity Resort?
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank those that reached out to us for the Organizational Immunity Resort. It's still open, by the way. So I'm encouraging all businesses to continue to reach out at my.immunity@sterlinginternational.com. And we shared that link before. We're going to share it again. But yeah, if you have a question that we can help you with, we'll be more than happy to help you with.
Okay. I'd like to say thank you, Ala, and thank you to everyone joining us today. Thank you for our viewers being with us for these last 5 weeks. And please be sure to contact us if you've missed the handouts or need a recording of the webinars. We'd be happy to email them to you. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.